you okay? Looks like network is. Hello? Can you hear me? Network. It's gone.
Are you there?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Good.
I've sent you the
I've just
link.
I posted on the Facebook. Yeah.
And Twitter.
Okay, that's not a problem. Let's go ahead. I'll post on the site.
All right, no worries. So good afternoon, Mr. Sowore. Thank you so much for joining me here on Live Chat with Josey. It's not the first time, but some people might be watching us for the first time today. As you know, it's a culture. I'll always ask you to introduce yourself so people know that are not from Nigeria know exactly who you are. Who is Omoyele Sowore?
I'm a Nigerian pro-democracy activist, publisher of Sahara Reporters, being a presidential candidate, and recently I've been in prison. I'm in jail for 5 months. So does that cover it?
No, you're a family man. You're a friend. You know, it's my first time to see you smile.
Oh, I have to
Yeah, some
smile.
people say that you don't smile.
Oh, I tell people, look, there's one thing I'm very sure of. This Sunday, right? And that
Yeah.
no Nigerian will go to hell because they've all lived in hell for a long time. So there's no reason to send any Nigerian to hell anymore. This is hell on earth.
Okay. So the reason why we have you today, once again, is because of everything that has been happening in Nigeria. Some of us are not Nigerians, are all over the world. We just saw the hashtag #EndSARS. I mean, what happened? What triggered those protests, Mr. Sowore?
I think it's important to be very clear about NSAS so that people don't misunderstand that NSAS is just about police brutality. But it started with this whole frustration with the way the police treat the Nigerian people, especially young people. So over the years, SARS that was created, SARS is a special anti-robbery squad. It was created in about 1992, 93, and they're supposed to focus on fighting armed robbery, but they have become armed robbers themselves, become extortionists, they become a unit that's involved in extrajudicial killings and abuse of rights of citizens. And a lot of young people had come against or across this group because they have their hair colored or they have dreadlocks or they drive a nice car or they have a laptop or they have an iPhone, which they are forced to open and in this case is do as they like. And it got to a head when in a place in Delta State, there's an allegation that a young guy had been killed by SARS again. And before people could even find out who the person was, they are gone up all up in arms. But what I should say is that SARS is not about SARS alone. It's about the general pent-up anger and frustration of Nigerians with the Nigerian government. It's for me a passing of vote of no confidence on the Muhammadu Buhari regime, the regime of Alhaji Buhari. Yes.
All right. So I know that there's been revolution now, which is a movement. Do you think NSAS has turned into a movement as we speak?
Oh, ESAS is not just a movement; it's a response to what is going on in the country.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a movement issue. I've said this so many times. I don't even know how many times to say this to you. That NSAS is beyond just a movement. But it's an outlet for people who want the country to change overall. But they had to find a vestibule or an alias name to express themselves. Because a lot of people are worried that if they say it's revolution now, the government is going to come and use armored tanks to kill them. Or even though we want them, it doesn't matter what you say or how you say it, the government is going to come after you anyways, because it's a brutal regime. But now we've come to that understanding. And it didn't take long after, in fact, after the government met all the conditions for NSAS, people were still complaining that it's not enough. No matter how they satisfy the conditions for NSAS, all these young people kept saying, no, we want more. Because it's not about NSAS, it's about unemployment, it's about the deplorable conditions of our roads, lack of electricity, lack of respect for human rights. The regime has broken every record possible.
But these are some of the things. But these are some of the things that you've also been trying to address when, in terms of your the revolution now, right? So, how do you feel?
The revolution now covers everything: NSAS, employment, minimum wage. So, and when I started Revolution Now in 2019, what they did was to come to my hotel, pick me up, and jail me for 5 months, hoping that they can scare people and make them never ask for their rights again. But that was the wrong thing. It just made people, it made a lot of people believe that the regime could be challenged. And secondly, a lot of people just hunkered down, went and planned, and by the time they came back, no one could stop them.
All right. Have you been harassed by the police yourself before?
Oh, yeah. I was detained in 1998 by the SARS after I was arrested at a protest. And it was the first time I was exposed to the atrocities of SARS. It was at a place in Lagos called Ikeja. I was at a protest protesting for students who were rusticated and victimized during military rule at the National University Games at the University of Lagos. My alma mater, but I graduated at that point. They grabbed me from the place, threw my head underneath the seat of one of their cars. It was a station wagon car, Peugeot 504, they call it. Drove me to this place and put me with people who they claimed were armed robbers. They had different degrees of injuries. They were afraid and mortally afraid that because they could come and call you in the middle of the night and you get shot, and that's the end. And they dump your body in a backbone or somewhere. And then they have a torture chamber next door where we're hearing like massive, pain from people. The guy who was being tortured that night was a blind guy who they are accused of robbery or aiding and abetting robbers. I couldn't sleep. I till today it rings in my ears how he was crying and said, "Just take me down." I think they hung him up somewhere and said, "If you can take me down, I'll tell you what you want and what you don't want to hear." It was crazy. So I've been a victim of SARS before, specifically SARS. I've been in detention several times, 10 times as of last year. And so I know what these guys do to people, even when you're not a criminal. So when someone is accused of being a criminal, I have doubts if the person's a criminal, because real criminals in Nigeria are the Nigerian leaders, but they don't get tortured, they don't go to jail. They point to other people as criminal. And when you think about what is SARS, robbery, right? You kill people or extrajudicial kill people, torture people, went back armed robbery, but you don't do anything about the people who do pen robbery or treasury robbery. And the armed robbers are like pickpockets compared to Nigerian politicians.
Yeah. All right. So, the NSAS protest, I think they took about 2 weeks or so. The president now came out. First, he disbanded the SARS and introduced SWAT. And then he came out and warned the protesters. He also told people like us in the international community that we should get the facts right. That is why we want to have these conversations with people like you on ground to actually get the facts right in case we are getting these things wrong. So what is the way forward now? As stopped, I mean, physically on ground, but on social media, they're still going on. And what happens next?
I think a lot of people are recalibrating, members of the movement or whomever is in the movement. They're taking a step back and recalibrating. I think because of the massacre of killings, of premeditated murder of persons at the Lekki toll gate. A lot of people just for now we really want to find out what happened. And this is part of what they want to achieve, to get people so scared that they don't come out again. But as far as I'm aware, I think people are determined, and you'll see a resurgence very soon, because they have not addressed the demands of the protesters. But it has also mutated. Yesterday, across the country, about 9 states out of 36 states, or 37, 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory, people went after palliatives, the COVID-19 palliatives that were supposed to have been released to the public. They were hiding them in warehouses, and for some reason, information was leaking out to the public, and people were just like invading these warehouses and liberating whatever they could. For a lot of people, Christmas came pretty early. But imagine, why would you do that to your people? Palliatives that were supposed to be for COVID, they're hiding them. Some are going to be repackaged and resold to the public. Some they want to use for political campaigns. So there's been a lot of breaking. So it's even up to this morning, I'm hearing that people are still breaking into houses of politicians, their White Houses, boys' quarters, to get whatever they can. Again, let me be very clear. I do not support any form of violence or looting. But we need to do something about treasury looters in this country that have made Nigeria such a pathetic country that it is today.
But are you so sure that these hoodlums are just attacking the politicians' places, houses, shops? Because I also see on Twitter their complaints of these hoodlums now attacking even innocent business people. I mean, what message would you have for them?
I'll say to you that the real hoodlum in this matter is the government. They're the hoodlums. Let me give you a trajectory or a sequence of events as it happened. When this started, it was completely peaceful movement. They had locations, they marched, and when they got tired, they went to sleep in front of the Lagos Assembly. They slept at the toll gate. They fed themselves water. They provided everything they needed, mats, provided their own electricity. And then government started recruiting thugs, political thugs, to come and beat up these guys. The peaceful protesters. It's possible that the government could have even been doing this so as to discredit the peaceful protesters. Look at what they did at Lekki. They denied that they were not the ones who went to Lekki, even though soldiers were captured, live on camera shooting at people. They still deny as we speak. Now they're no longer denying that they were there. They're denying that they killed anybody. And then they said, well, only 2 people died. And as if how do you use only to describe the death of 2 innocent persons?
Yeah, you've touched on. You've touched on the Lekki massacre. This is something that we really want to understand from the international community. When the president said that we should get the facts right, how would you describe exactly what happened at the Lekki toll gate on October 20th?
So the governor of Lagos State, Josey, imposed a curfew when they saw that the protests were not letting up. And after they tried everything else to frustrate the protesters. And the protesters said, well, curfew doesn't prevent us from protests. It just says stay where you are. So they stayed at Lekki toll gates. And at about 6:30 p.m., 2 vans of soldiers, I don't know how many soldiers were involved, approached these peaceful protesters. They were waving the Nigerian flag and singing national anthem, and they opened fire on them. When they started, these young people thought it was a joke. And they were asking to sit down, just wave your flag, because I had made the myth for a week that if you have a flag, the army will not shoot you, nobody will shoot you. It didn't happen to be so. They just started shooting at these people, and some died right there. In some other persons died. According to what we had, so many were injured, and they put so many of them in their trucks and took them back to their barracks. So we don't even know the fate of the people that were taken to the barracks. So, but we know the barrack where these soldiers came from. It's called Bonny Camp Barracks. It's of the 65 Battalion in the Nigerian Army. That much we've been able to figure out. But they still deny that anybody died, even though we've heard from Amnesty International that over 12 to 15 people died. So I think what they did was to pick up body, but which has been the tradition of Nigerian military, and go hide their bodies. Yesterday I heard somebody was found thrown into the lagoon. I cannot confirm exactly the circumstances, but they're doing everything they can to cover it up. But the governor of Lagos State has partially confessed to the fact that, yes, these are soldiers from a particular barrack no more than 10 minutes away, and that they got there, they arrived earlier than they had agreed. So the discrepancies are not much anymore. It's just to figure out who commanded them and who are the soldiers in these two Hilux vans, and to make sure that appropriate punishments are meted to them, both locally and internationally, so that this doesn't repeat itself.
You are a people's person. Are there any families, any parents that have come forward to you or through your people to say their sons or their daughters are missing?
I have over 22 slides from Twitter of people who said, families, friends, and relatives of missing persons. 22 of them sent to me saying they can't find them. So what we don't have at this point is how to categorize who's dead and who is injured. They have not denied that people died. They're just hiding in numbers because they don't want it to be called a massacre. They also haven't denied that the governor went to visit hospitals where injured people were being treated. Yesterday, we had one of the guys was injured. We have his leg amputated today because it's going to get gangrenous. So nobody is denying the basic facts. They're just, spinning as much as possible to make this not appear or be called a massacre. For me, the moment it's premeditated, was pre-planned. Even the death of a person is a massacre. That's how I describe it. Because they had no business to that place. They had no business going to in a civil matter.
Omoyele, you're someone that is known worldwide that you're very patriotic. You have Nigeria at heart. When you saw the flag that was dripping with blood, how did you feel that night? Nigeria flag dripping with blood.
Look, I felt bad, very terribly bad. I was sad. While this was happening, they invited me to come back for my trial, the farcical trial, because they wanted to put me back in jail. I couldn't leave the house early enough to even go to court because I just couldn't deal with it. But I'm also not surprised. The Nigerian state doesn't have respect for the flag, doesn't have respect for the national anthem, doesn't have respect for any national symbols. This is a bunch of crazy, incompetent, corrupt, and wicked leaders who will do anything just to strike fear in the heart of the citizens. Otherwise, there's no reason to send soldiers to go and shoot at peaceful protesters. There's nobody at Lekki Tollgate who had a penknife on him.
All right, let's analyze the president's speech. What did you get out of it as a Nigerian citizen?
Oh, I think it redefined for a lot of people some of their own position, that they think that there's some people who actually feel that I'm too radical, that my position is too radical about Nigeria, especially the younger generation. And they even accused me that maybe because we're using the word revolution, they will bring the government to be more harsh. But these are not revolution now people. These are NSAS protesters. So it speaks to what I've always told people, that it doesn't matter how radical, whether you're in the middle, left or right of the spectrum. When they're after you, they'll kill you without looking back. They'll kill you without respect for your rights as a human being. They just hate you, not because of any ideological differences, but because you even stand up to ask for your right. The Nigerian state will kill you. And a lot of people now understand that. I think that was why, after the killings, a lot of people switched over to what I was advocated, that the current leadership must be kicked out of his place. So everybody now is not many people are talking about EdSARS, and some people are calling it end the bad governance. Some people are saying Buhari must go. But that's always been my position. We should go for a revolution so we can solve this problem once and for all.
But I also see some hashtag end Nigeria now. I don't know if you've seen that. I seem not to understand when people say end Nigeria now. If it ends, then what?
There are a lot of people, groups that actually feels that Nigeria has outlived its usefulness because Nigeria was put together by the British in 1914. They brought the South and not together as an amalgamation. Set up as a business. So there are people who went through the killing of some 3 million Nigerians during the war between 1967 and 1970. I wasn't around there. I was born 1971. So those ones feel like this is an unjust and unfair country or federation that they want out. But let me tell you, as I often say to people, apart from those groups who specifically are talking about breaking up Nigeria, a lot of Nigerians have mentally seceded from Nigeria because this is an unjust and unfair. And the day after Lekki shootings, guess what was trending in Nigeria? Passports. They were saying, "Go get your passport and leave."
Yeah, I saw that.
It's not a place worth human habitation. Like I said at the beginning of the show with you, there's no Nigerian that should go to hell. It will be double jeopardy because we have lived in hell on earth.
Yeah. So how do you think the government can restore dignity into the police force now?
People are not fighting for police force, they're fighting against the government. So the government has no dignity. There's no government in Nigeria. Why should I be lying to you that it's government? Which is the president of Nigeria is like an effigy, it's like apparition. Once in a while, they say, come and see him, and he'll say some things, piss more people off, and then they hide him back wherever he is. Apart from people saying end Nigeria, have you not also seen a lot of people saying that the president is dead? And they believe it.
I've seen that, and I have questions. I have questions about that. Is that
people believe that the man that's sitting in that seat today or that is in charge of Nigeria is not Buhari? They said Buhari died 2017. A lot of people believe that. I've never seen that many people believe a standard conspiracy theory as that. But like I said to people, it's a metaphor for a vote of no confidence in his presidency, that people actually look at him and say, that's not you. Maybe there's some level of hope that if this was Buhari, he would have acted differently. But I keep telling people, this is Buhari of 1983, 1984, until 1985. This is a wicked, heartless Buhari, who pretends to not be the person who does evil, but is actually happy when evil is perpetrated against his people, Nigerian people. Yes.
All right. Okay, Omoyele, still on President Buhari, we're talking of the speech. Everyone in the world was anticipating, like, what is he going to say in that speech? I want your honest opinion as someone who is at the hardcore of Nigeria. Can we analyze the speech?
There's no need to analyze those. He didn't give any speech that is worth analysis. Why would I waste my time analyzing it? It was a disappointment. But I wasn't surprised. I told people around me, I said, look, this man is just going to come and pour gasoline over the fire. He's not going to show any empathy because it's not him that is in control. You know, a lot of people I know in government tells me the man is senile. You know, he doesn't remember a lot of things.
Ah,
But I don't think it's as senile as he's wicked. You know, this is probably how he wants things to be. But he likes subterfuge. He likes to hide behind excuses and persons. That's why all kinds of people that walk around him are the people you can easily blame for bad things as opposed to blaming Buhari, who's stable, the buck stops. This
mm.
is Buhari. Yes. So when he gave the speech, in fact, if you look at my timeline, before he finished giving his speech, I had already written it off.
And then his special advisor on media and publicity, Mr. Femi Adesina, also came out saying that only hatred will kill Nigeria. What do you think about that statement? It was soon
The
after
guy,
the speech.
the guy needs to check into a mental institution. Femi Adesina. On August 5, when we had a protest, he said it was a child play. Now he's saying something. Last week, I think he was blaming religious leaders for what's going on in the country. You know, let me tell you, I have been around Nigeria for 3 decades, monitoring politics, partaking in every protest. What is part of what is sad about Nigeria is that you can never find shortage of bad people to defend the most indefensible things in the world. If Hitler were to be a Nigerian, he'd probably still be in power.
Mhm.
Yes.
All
Because
right.
you'll
So,
find people who would defend anything he does. They'll say, wow, for some people at this time, the president could be given, they could recommend the president to get a Nobel Peace Award. It's just for shooting people. That's Nigeria. It's nothing new.
Omoyele, if you were, I mean, you are a former presidential candidate. So, if you were the president, how would you have handled this situation?
If I was president, this situation would not have happened. And I'm not bragging, you know. So because what brought about this thing is these tactical units. When I was campaigning, I said I would disband all of them. I would have disbanded them the day the day I was sworn in. I'll
Mhm.
return them to regular police and I'll remove every policeman who gets a VIP, and I will act as the commander in chief of the armed forces, including the police, remove them from the streets where they don't need to be, equip them properly, pay them a salary that is not the minimum wage but the living wage, because you
Mm.
cannot keep people who are holding weapons poor. Otherwise, you are inviting crisis. And then have an ombudsman to whom you can report if there are police abuses that's not based in the police headquarters or related with police, and this wouldn't have happened. And if this happened under my watch, the IGP would have been fired by now. I would have fished out every policeman who carried out any extrajudicial killing. They'll be on trial in public, transparently, and the confidence of the public would have been restored. But if I was president, we wouldn't have gotten to this. I would have resolved the problem before it got to this point. I'm not, because I've been a victim of police brutality. So yes, I have a bias against violation of people's rights by the police because they really beat me up pretty well as a student activist. And even when I went for a protest about 2 weeks ago at the police headquarters, we were close to, you know, uh, being shot at. They had started threatening us with guns and tear gas and all that. So I wouldn't have allowed this to fester up to this point where it became a major issue. But as I said, it would have been addressing a variety of problems with, because leadership is like internet bandwidth, right? Some is dial up, some is 4G, 5G. These guys are still like no G's in the business of governance. So we would have been working over time and uh, killing ourselves in the government or the cabinet. If anybody wasn't working with a fired person, and I would have appeared to, I would have represented myself physically in front of the protesters and talked to them and said, "This is what we're doing. Please go home. And if you don't want to go home, please conduct yourself in a way that I'll ensure that the police protect them, both from thugs and from extrajudicial activities that led to the deaths of a lot of these innocent kids." So I don't imagine that those have happened. And like I said, I'm not bragging. I know governance is not rocket science, and I campaign about these issues a lot. Now people understand, but slow to late.
All right. So, what do you think about Tinubus' recent statement?
Oh man, Tinubu was just implicating himself up and down. It's very obvious that Tinubu knew about the shootings because first, on the day of the shooting, he issued a tweet where he said, "If the protesters don't go home, government will be justified to use force." And he denies that he had no hand in it. No hand in it. And yesterday, when he went to see the governor, he said it openly that the protesters who were shot at have some explanations to make. And one of them, he said they should explain how long they've been there, why they went there, and what they was. And I'm just paraphrasing, not his exact words. I was shocked. But it's true to you that Tinubu cannot deny culpability in Lekki shootings because they were after his businesses. One of it is the toll gate where they make billions every month ahead. And then you see how protesters went and attacked his newspaper, his TV station. Let me make it clear that I don't support the attacks on any media platforms, regardless of what people think. But these are facts of the story as we have it today. I think it's obvious that he's further and further implicating himself because I'm sure he was privy to what was going on.
Yeah, I know that you earlier said that hoodlums are the politicians, and you keep actually emphasizing the fact that you don't support violence. So what would you say to the people on the streets as we speak that are going into shops, into politicians' homes and stuff like that? What message do you have for them?
Oh no, look, it is the job of government where you have governments to prevent crime. I don't know of any recent protests, even the Black Lives Matter protests in the US. Looters were going into shops in New York and Los Angeles, everywhere. But what was the difference? Policing. It's the job of the police and law enforcement officers to stop looters. Where have you found them? For a Tinubu who's run Lagos for past close to 20 years now, when his shop was burning, there were no firefighters around. What happened to all the firefighting equipment that could have stopped the fire? Even internally, there ought to have been a firefighting system in place. So when you blame hoodlums, you can do the same for US, you can do the same for UK. When there was I think it was the yellow beret or was the yellow vest movement in France, there was a lot of burning of things. What was the difference? Policing and public institutions are supposed to stop it, and eventually they stopped. Someone was asking me the other day, "Oh, there's a jailbreak." I said, "There's no revolution or uprising that doesn't lead to a jailbreak because why do you think people go to jail to break jails? Because they're looking at the people who should be in jail are not in jail. The people who are like petty criminals are languishing in jail, and the politicians who are the real thieves and killers and murderers and destroyers of the country, they're wearing three-piece boo-boos and having fun. Private jets, children to go to school anywhere. That's how the public thinks. But that should not stop me or prevent me from stating that it is wrong to loot, to destroy or kill anyone, even if you disagree with them. So I'm not in support of those actions. But I have to give you a context, and that's what I've just tried to do.
Okay. So what next for you? I mean, are you still thinking of running for presidency?
There's a lot more work to be done in Nigeria today than presidency.
But elections are coming up very soon. I mean, we need to know so we I
We see
mean,
that. We see that.
what's next for
We see that.
Nigeria?
We see that 2020, 2 months ago, we can achieve a lot. We got 2021, 2022 before we get to 2023. Why are we jumping the gun? If
It's
we
not
can
just
have a, if we
it's
can,
not jumping the gun.
if,
Everybody says
I understand,
Nigeria
I
must
understand.
end, Buhari must go. So if Buhari must go, who is next?
Jose, I mean, this is just sorry, I apologize. Um, I was in Abuja in 2015, right? And Robert Mugabe came to Abuja to attend Buhari's inauguration. Myself and a young lady known as Adeola, when I
I
confronted him,
know.
and we told him, when are you going to have elections in your country? He was so condescending. And the belief was that Robert Mugabe would still do another term because I think elections were approaching. But the people of Zimbabwe said enough was enough. Not only did they kick him out of power, he didn't last long after that. Did you get to do the election he was expecting? No, because the people said enough is enough. So this is the reason why I'm saying jump. It's up to the people to determine when the next election will be. 2023 is a date on the calendar. It's not a date on the destiny of the people of Nigeria.
Okay. Anyway, thank you so much, Omoyele, for your time, and any parting words for the people of Nigeria before we end the
Revolution now. We have to go for it, and no backing now. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much. And good afternoon. All right.
Me too.
All right.